What's up nerfers, and welcome back to my channel, where today I'm trying out a brand new camera lens, the Nikon 50mm 1.2. Should have some very blurry backgrounds behind me, nice and smooth. But today I've also brought out the Worker Kunlun, whatever you want to call this thing, for some further testing. This is the brand new Worker 1.8 by 260mm spring. It was sent to me directly from Worker themselves, but you should be able to pick this up from any of the Worker retailers all around the world, such as Out of Darts in the USA, Blaster Tech or Foamwork Adelaide here in Australia. Although I'm not entirely sure if they'll have stock of this yet, I was sent it direct from Worker, so they're probably waiting on these themselves. I'll pop some links down below to all those retailers, just so you can have a look for yourselves. Now, if I look like I'm sweating a bit today, it is a scorcher. We've got 41 degrees Celsius or 106 Fahrenheit for you American viewers. I'll be starting out with a chrono test, and I'll be using 3 different dart types for that. I'll be testing Sabre heavy darts in this to see what they're shooting. These are a 1.3 gram dart, so pretty heavy compared to what you might be used to. I'll also be testing Worker heavies. These are 1.2 grams each, so a little bit lighter than the Sabres, but still heavier than standard darts. And I only have a couple of these left, but I will also fire some 1 gram dart zone bamboos through the chrono, just so you guys know what a 1 gram dart is doing out of this. And then of course, once I've finished with the chrono testing of the stock spring against the brand new upgraded one, I'll take this blaster and I'll do some more important testing like range and accuracy. Let's get started with the chrono test. Okay guys, so first up I'm going to do a couple of shots of 1 gram darts, just so you can get an idea of what they'll do if you're still using 1 grammers yourself. And this is with the stock spring that the Kunlun comes with. 302, 310, 299. So shooting around that 300 FPS mark with the stock spring. Now I'll chuck in some Worker heavies, which are a little bit heavier. They weigh 1.2 grams each, so they're 20% heavier. 265, 265, 287, 264, 269, 280, 272, 288, 272, 290, and that's all 10 shots. Let's switch to even heavier darts now. We've got the Sabre darts. 1.3 grams or 30% heavier than those first 3 shots. 266, 252, 214, 264, 267, 218, 273, 278, 242, 252. That's all 10 of those. Anyway, let's swap to the heavier spring and see what happens. Now, changing the spring in this thing is pretty straightforward. There's an onboard Allen key located just under the front of the blaster here. So you can just pull that out. And if you've mounted your front sight back far enough, you should be able to access this screw right here. It's in the top rail. Then there's a second screw you have to do about in the middle of the top rail. And then around on the other side of the Kunlun, so the side without the bolt, you've just got to undo these 2 bolts here, so top one and the bottom one. Remove the magazine, and then the front and back half should just pull apart from each other. Beautiful. And from there you can just pull the plunger tube out, and then you have direct access to the spring. Now I'm going to just pull back the curtain for a moment here, because I actually filmed this spring swap demo before I did the chrono test, and it's a very good thing that I did, because I noticed the pusher O-ring has completely snapped in half. Now, luckily I happen to own a universal O-ring kit with a bunch of different sizes in there, so I'll swap it out for the one that's the correct size. You can get these for pocket change on eBay or Amazon. I think I got mine from eBay. But anyway, once you've swapped out that O-ring, you literally just push these two halves back together and put the screws back in. And with that, I return you to the video timeline where we're about to shoot the heavier spring. All right, now that I'm back from showing you how to swap the spring out, I've got 3 more 1 gram darts to see just what a 1 gram dart does with this upgrade spring. I don't really use them anymore myself, but I know some of you at home probably still do. This is quite a bit heavier prime now. Let's see how it does. 342. 351. And 355. So it's shooting about 350 now, up from 300 with a standard 1 gram dart, a nice 50 FPS boost. All right, for the last couple of mags, I've changed locations a bit just to be a little bit cooler in the shade for me. In this 41-degree heat, we've got Worker 1.2 gram heavies. Let's see how they do with the upgrade spring. $285, $282, $264, $307, $306, $300, $286, 302, 277, pretty good for heavy darts to be shooting over 300, 269, and the FPS might average a little below 300, but we did get some shots over it. Let's see how the even heavier saber darts do now. $322, $298, $242, $270, $270, $267, $262, $267, $272, $260. That's all 10. We had some spicy shots from the heavies, even though they were the heaviest dart of the lot. They managed to hit 322 as the highest. Pretty impressive with just an upgrade spring. Over the Chrono with the stock spring, 1 gram darts, although I don't have many of them these days, averaged 303 feet per second. With the upgrade spring, that got bumped up to 349, so about a 50 FPS improvement compared to the spring that normally comes in the box when you first buy the Kunlun. Moving on to Worker heavies, those averaged 275 on the stock spring and 287 with the upgrade one, so a gain of only 12 FPS in comparison. Saber darts averaged 252, bumping up to 273 with the spring swap, a gain of 21 FPS, meaning they improved a fair bit more than the Worker heavies did. As for the consistency of Worker and saber darts, they were both pretty bad, and I think they're either both being affected by the extreme heat, or more likely it could be the O-ring that I swapped in was slightly the wrong size, leading to a small air leak which the lighter 1 gram darts didn't seem fazed by. Both of my included O-rings broke in the same way, so I don't even have a spare one from Worker anymore. I'm down to just these third-party ones that I got online. So we'll have to see how it affects the accuracy test later on, having standard deviations of 22. First though, the range test. Okay guys, time for the range test. I think range tests are pretty straightforward. I'm going to stand along this fence line here. I've got a laser rangefinder for when I find all the darts I've shot. Let's shoot 5 of each. That's all 10. So I took great care to avoid hitting any of the tree branches, just aiming in between them. I did find a nice straight line down the middle. So hopefully all the darts made it all the way to the end of this driveway. Not seeing any bunched up under tree branches. Yeah, I can see a bunch of them in the driveway. Got a worker dart here, worker dart, worker dart. Yeah, it looks like the worker darts averaged, I'll say in the middle of this grouping of workers, they went 62 meters. And then we have saber, 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 which all went 70 meters. So saber darts seem to have a little further range than the workers. Given their slightly heavier weight, that would explain why. Now it's time for the accuracy test. I've got a 1 meter diameter target here. We'll be sitting 30 meters back using the bipod as a rest. I've also added the saber beaker on the front here to give it a bit of added accuracy, a bit of spin for the darts as they leave the barrel. Now, bit of a behind the scenes here. We've got the 50mm 1.2, which lets in so much light. I've had to use darkening filters the whole day out here. Because I'm using a faster shutter speed and able to do slow motion with the accuracy testing here, I've taken one of the 2 darkening filters off. I'll go put that away and then I'll do the accuracy test, eh? So these are a nice magnetic filter I've had for ages now. This is a 3-stop and still remaining on the camera is a 6-stop. Just goes in a nice little case like that. As for the blaster, I've got the worker heavies loaded in first, and then I'll do the saber heavies, which are over there. And this is, of course, with that heavier spring, because I've already done accuracy testing in my original review with the stock spring. That was a little bit low, perhaps a bit right, it was hard to see. A little bit low, but fairly centered there. A little bit low. A fair bit low. That one, I think it fell short of the cinder blocks. Should still be within the camera picture though. A little bit low on the left. It's like some of these shots are coming out as a bit of a dud.
At this point, both my GoPro and the Nikon Z6 III started to overheat from the high temperatures of the day. So unfortunately, I lost some footage of the rest of the worker darts. But I can tell you they were very unimpressive from this point onwards. The grouping would have actually ended up being a little larger than the one shown here. So consider it beneficial to the worker darts that the footage was lost. With the cameras restarted, I moved on to saber darts.
All right, saber dart time. Let's see how they do. Whoa, a little bit higher than the worker darts were. Just keep in mind I was zeroed for the worker darts. So these going higher was not something I factored in. We've also had the wind pick up a little bit, which for me is nice, but could potentially make the accuracy a little bit worse. At least from my experience, wind doesn't seem to affect it in here because of the shade cloth. Definitely going higher than the worker darts were. Lovely. Beautiful. These darts sell themselves. I think it was pretty obvious which one was better. And just for the record, these are brand new Worker Heavies that arrived yesterday. Got them from Foamwork Adelaide, so it's not like they've been sitting around or anything. They're fresh off the presses. Despite both of my cameras overheating in this 41°C scorcher, I was able to record 5 worker shots, and those 5 were already far worse than the saber dart spread I shot later. If I could show you the rest of the shots I fired of them, that grouping would have actually ended up being even larger than this. But it's already double the size of the saber one. As for the saber darts themselves, they were quite impressive with a 40cm spread. Despite the makeshift field repair that I made after my pusher O-ring broke, the saber heavies still performed very well even with their standard deviation of 22 over the Chrono. 22 is pretty high. Now though, it's time for some final thoughts. Okay guys, to wrap things up, this seems to be about a 50 FPS gain over the stock spring, at least on 1 gram darts. And then on heavier darts, there's a little bit of gain there too, getting around just below 300 FPS with heavies. In terms of a range test, we were getting 70 meters with saber darts on average, and we're getting 62 now with Worker Heavies. And then moving on to the accuracy test, pretty much matching every other test I've done between Worker and Saber. There was a huge difference using the Saber darts. They were way more accurate and also shot higher up on the target than the Worker darts did. Which is pretty much why I don't use Worker darts anymore. Just thought I'd get a brand new fresh pack just to make sure my perspective was correct on those. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. I'm gonna go head inside out of this 41°C heat, 106 if you're in the US. Here's 2 other videos you might enjoy. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, and like, comment, subscribe and all that. See yas.